Well,
Hey toy fans, Aaron here. Finally got my hands on a vintage collection TIE Fighter, so I thought that's what we would take a look at today. So let's head to the table and check this one out. First a look at the packaging. Obviously this is done in the vintage style look. Gets you the classic black box with that Star Wars logo, racetrack running around the side. And then for that image you get a great look at the TIE Fighter with the included TIE pilot sticking out of the hatch there. Couple vintage collection stormtroopers just off to the side, and as noted underneath that, they're only shown for historical purposes, currently not available. Maybe they'll get another release someday. Top right side, you got a little sticker there notating that this is a Walmart exclusive, and inside that red circle is a notation that the Imperial TIE Fighter pilot is included. And then rounding out the vintage look is the Kenner logo at the bottom right side. Top of the packaging, you got a couple photos showing off that the wings eject and then also fit back into place. On the bottom, it's showing off that the TIE Fighter pilot is indeed included. You can see he's got some articulated points there. And the other photo showing off the premium detailing of the interior of the cockpit. Left side of the box just stating that the figure fits inside and you get an ejection seat. Right side photo showing off that the cannons slide out. They don't shoot out, you just pull them out. And then I guess they're running out of things to show off, so let's show off the opening hatch. Back side of the box, pretty much the same as the front. The image is just a little bit smaller though to make room for all that legal information along the bottom. And then this time you get the Vintage Collection logo on the upper right side. Taking a look at the vehicle out of the packaging. First up, it looks great. Overall, I'd say the tone of the vehicle is a light gray in color. Matches in look to the Solo TIE Fighter that we received just a couple months ago. Take a look at these two side by side real quick. Right side is that Solo TIE Fighter, left side Vintage Collection version. As you see, both in terms of color and sculpting of the body, pretty much identical. And I say sculpting of the body a little rather loosely. The detailing of the main body and stuff is relatively the same. You start to look at things a little closer, you're going to notice minor differences. Some of the immediate things being that the hatch on top is bigger on the Vintage Collection version than it is on the Solo version. And then the most obvious thing is the size of the wings are very different. Now, in case you're wondering, you're not going to be able to take the wings from the Vintage Collection and stick it on the Solo TIE Fighter. Unfortunately, the way that they have the wings attaching at that joint there, the clips are just in different positions. You get 4 clips on the Vintage Collection, kind of more off to the side, whereas on the Solo TIE Fighter, it's just 2 clips, top and bottom. So in case you're wanting to utilize the new breakaway mold of the Solo TIE Fighter with the larger wings, that's just not going to happen. I did do a full review of the Solo TIE Fighter, and I'll put that link in the description, so if you wish to watch that, you can do so. And then real quick, just for fun, show the Vintage Collection TIE Fighter off along with the Saga Collection TIE Fighter. That one was branded as the large scale wings. As you can see, this matches up identically in size. The sculpting of the main body is different between the two, but the wings are sculpted exactly the same. Just different color plastic. What this vehicle does relate more to though is the Legacy Collection TIE Fighter that was released back in 2009. This new Vintage Collection version does use the exact same mold and sculpt as they did for the Legacy version. You're just getting a darker color plastic. Legacy Collection, as you can see, leaned more in white in color. And then also for the windows of the cockpit, Legacy Collection version had a red tint to it, whereas this one is nice clear plastic. Also, the interior of the cockpit, as you can see through that window, was a mix of white and black, whereas Vintage Collection is giving you a silver and a little bit of dark gray on this interior itself. Also, a small thing here, you do still have the cannons that do slide out. This was on that previous release as well. They don't shoot out. They're not spring-loaded or anything. You're just going to have to slide that out, and this is as far as they extend. Not the best looking paint job on this. The red and gray is already starting to chip off on this. I had the same problem on my Solo TIE Fighter, but as you can see, you get a little bit more detailing on this than you did on the Legacy Collection version, which was just painted in the gray with the red at the tip. And now focusing in just on this Vintage Collection release. As I already mentioned, overall it has a nice light gray color to the body. And I do like that color personally. I know there's probably plenty of arguments to be had about them being more white or more blue or whatever. But for me, I'm liking the way this looks. The wings are a nice hard plastic throughout, top to bottom. Unlike the Solo release where the gray parts are rubber, this is all hard plastic. Out of the box, nothing is warped or out of shape here. Sculpting for the mechanical parts on the wings are looking really good. We've seen this released quite a few times, so there's really nothing new here. Through the main body on the front, nice sculpting for the vehicle, little bits of raised parts and whatnot. I like that dark gray painting just off the side of the window, and then around the rim painted in, you've got a nice metallic gray color. And then also within that window, I do like the way things are looking. Instead of seeing like the little plastic seat with the sticker and stuff on it, you get a nicely sculpted interior showing throughout the window. And as I already mentioned, underneath that, you have the two cannons that slide out. Unfortunately, paint's already chipping on mine. Top of the hatch is looking really good too. And here also you got little bits of dark gray painted in on various panels, just separating things out a little bit. On the bottom side of the vehicle, still some panels and stuff sculpted in there. That round patch of dark gray painting at the bottom of it. And then looking at the back side, well, pretty much what you expect a TIE Fighter to look like. A little bit more gray at the top and then at the bottom of these little panel pieces or whatever. And then just two little red dots painted in for some lights. Not real lights, just paint. And as expected, hatch opens up, revealing a nice interior to that cockpit. Really hard to show things off here, but on each side of the cockpit, you got these little red panel lights and stuff sculpted in there. Or, sorry, not sculpted, but I'm pretty sure they're just stickers that they attached on before they assembled the vehicle. But it looks good, and even that red, it really catches the light well and does reflect any light really nice. So it kind of looks cool, to me anyways. That center console's looking pretty good. Nice handles there that you're able to stick the hands of the figure onto. And I don't think you're able to see it too well, but there is a little red screen painted in at the center of that flight control. The little seat does eject out, as they're calling it. It doesn't really pop out or anything. You just slide that in and out. Here you can see it on the turntable. Great sculpt to it. This was also used on the Legacy Collection release, so nothing new here. But like I said, it does have an awesome sculpt going on. Little bits of red painting off to the side, and then even some touches on the red for the back of maybe an engine of some sort for this thing to fly along once it gets ejected. As you can see, you got a little clip that you can slide the figure onto and it'll hold him well. About your best bet is to put the figure in here first and then slide the seat back into place inside the cockpit, at least if you got big hands like me. It's possible that a kid's hand won't have the kind of problems that I had getting the figure onto the seat while the seat was already in place. And of course, as you'd expect, you can close the hatch even with the figure seated in there. It seems silly to have to mention that, but after the X-Wing releases from the sequel trilogy, you gotta kind of point that out. And for your added touch of playability, those wings do kind of eject off, same as you had back when you were a kid, and even the Power of the Force 2 version, and I'm sure a few others. You have these two buttons here, one for each wing on the side of the canopy, and in theory, the wings should pop out, fall to the floor. One wing works well for me, one wing not so good, just nothing really pushing out at it for some reason. Give it a little wiggle and it'll go. It's a fun feature. Certainly a classic feature that we had, or I had when I was a kid growing up. Not as dynamic as the breakaway feature that you get with the solo TIE Fighter, but it's still fun nonetheless, and just wish it worked a little better. And now checking out the TIE Fighter pilot that you get with this, it is almost the exact same figure that we got with the Legacy Collection. Put the two up side by side, as you can see. Just a little bit of variances in it. Different paint job for the helmet. This release does have that silver touch along the center of the helmet with some of the text painted in there. Does not have the two gray stripes that you got on the Legacy Collection release. And just a minor variation between the way the chest box is painted between the two figures. You can see that silver line running from side to side just towards the bottom. And you got a couple red dots painted in on the knobs towards the right. Also overall, I'd say there's just a slight tone difference in the plastic used for the uniform. Also, one thing to note between the two figures is the Legacy Collection version did have a removable helmet, and in this case, the helmet is not removable. Yes, it's the same figure, and yes, it's even the same helmet, but what they did here was just glued on the helmet onto a plastic head that's just painted black to match the uniform. Otherwise, though, focusing just on this figure, everything's still looking really good. I will say with this figure, I was having a very hard time getting him to stand up on his own. For some reason, at the bottom of the legs, they're kind of wonky. They're not really out flat. They're kind of bent inward, so he just doesn't have a real good footing to him. With lots of trial and error, you can get him to stand up on his own. My turntable's just not smooth enough, though. He'll just keep falling over, so I need to use this stand. The helmet has a nice glossy black paint job to it. The galactic symbols on the top, just on each side, are looking nice as well. Nice clean lines in there, definitely making it identifiable as the Imperial symbol. Rest of the figure through the upper body is looking like you would expect a TIE Fighter to look like. The uniform sculpted nicely. And then on the shoulders of the figure, you see the Empire symbol painted in there also. Nice glossy black gloves. I already talked about that chest box. Underneath that, you do have some shiny black armor. Along his left forearm, he's got a couple little comm things painted in there, some silvers, a little touch of red. Nothing really crazy happening on the back of the figure. You just got more of that glossy black armor for the top half. And the rest of what you see is just his black flight suit. For his belt, interesting that they did this. He's kind of got two belts going on. You got the sculpted belt on the figure itself, black with the silver buckle. and then strapped around that is another belt looking pretty much the same. Even got little touches of silver painted in there for some sort of little canisters or something on the belt. And you do get a functioning holster on the right side of his hip. As far as the rest of the figure, the rest of that flight suit's looking really good. See some pocket detailing sculpted in there, and then nice glossy black boots. As far as articulation, the head's on a ball joint. Of course, you're not going to swivel it 360 because of the hoses run into that chest box, but because that's also on a peg, it's going to help give you a little bit more room. You can see it kind of swivels along when you're twisting that head around. You do get some nodding up and down, and even some side-to-side movement there. Shoulders are going to rotate 360 degrees, and they are also hinged, of course, so they're going to go 90 degrees straight out. Both elbows will bend for you 90 degrees, and then you're going to get your swiveling in there also. And then both wrists also have that rotation in there. You got your swiveling at the waist. Both legs can come straight out, and they go back just a tiny bit. Single hinge bend at the kneecap, and you get your swiveling there if you wanted to. And that's all you got at the legs. There's no feet or ankle articulation. Figure does come with a weapon. Sometimes you get your regular Stormtrooper blasters with these figures, and in this case we got some other blaster. This is the same one that came also with that Legacy Collection version. Nice sculpting to it. No special painting or weathering or anything like that. It's just sculpted in that kind of dark gray plastic. Fits nicely in his right hand. Doesn't necessarily have a trigger finger extended, but his hand is sculpted in a little bit more of an open position for that handle. And then the weapon does fit pretty well into that holster. So overall, for a re-release set, this is pretty cool looking, and I think a very nice upgrade to what we had before. You're not getting the red windows for the cockpit and the top of the hatch that you had on the Legacy Collection, and I like the way the interior is painted on this one. It's not all white and gray. It's just, I don't know, it just seems much more in line with what I expect to see through the window of a TIE Fighter. Now, it does retail for $80 fresh off the shelf at Walmart. When it was released in 2009, obviously it looked a little bit different, as you've already seen, but that vehicle retailed for only $40. In the end, I guess this will be up to you to determine whether it's worth the $80 or not. And that wraps up this look at the Vintage Collection TIE Fighter. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this vehicle in the comment section below, and as always, thanks for watching.